I have none. We have none. Thank you, Governor. Thank you.
Is presented in agenda item number 4.
So moved that we adopt and rescind the items that are in number 4.
And amend, Madam Secretary.
And amend. I'm sorry, I forgot the amend.
I just want to make sure it's clear.
Okay, thank you.
I second.
Secretary has moved to approve the request to adopt, rescind, and amend the rules for the Victims of Crime program as presented in agenda item number 4. The Attorney General has seconded the motion. Any questions or discussion on the motion? I hear none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes 3-0. And Ms. Salazar and Ms. Margondo, I want to personally thank you for all of your hard work and taking care of not only the victims of 1 October, but everybody else. And it's a very meaningful program. And I had the opportunity to speak with somebody, a family member who was related to somebody who was murdered, and you were very helpful to them, and they were very thankful. So I truly appreciate your work, and it's hard work, and it's emotional work, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor.
We'll move to agenda item number 5, which is request to purchase state vehicles. Mr. Nix.
There are 3 requests for 9 vehicles on this agenda item. The agenda shows the Fire Marshal's vehicle purchase contingent on a work program, which is incorrect. The work programs for both of the business and industry, the work programs are for both of the business and industry purchases. The work programs will be addressed with the specific requests. The first request is for the Department of Business and Industry, Division of Industrial Relations, Occupational Safety and Health Administration to purchase a new vehicle using grant funds. The request is contingent on work program C44613. The second request is from the Department of Business and Industry, Division of Industrial Relations, Safety, Consultation, and Training to purchase 7 replacement vehicles using grant funds. The vehicles being replaced have met the age requirements in SAM. The request is contingent on work program C44588. The third request is from the Department of Public Safety, State Fire Marshal's Office to purchase 1 replacement vehicle. The vehicle being replaced has met the mileage and age requirements in SAM and was included in the agency's legislatively approved budget. Representatives from the departments are available to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Mr. Nixon. What was the change? You said there was a change.
The 2 changes we had was the addition of work program C44613 to the first request from the Department of Business and Industries. And the second change was the addition of, the replacement of the previous work program with work program C44588 to the second request.
Right, thank you, but the amounts stay the same.
The amounts stay the same, correct.
Right, I have no questions on this agenda item. Board members, any questions on agenda item number 5?
I move to approve.
Attorney General has moved to approve the request to purchase state vehicles as presented in agenda item number 5 and is amended by Mr. Nix. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Governor.
Second by the Secretary of State. Any questions or discussion on the motion? There are none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 3-0. We made it easy on you, right? We'll move to agenda item number 6, which is authorization to contract with a current and/or former state employee. Mr. Nix.
Item 6 includes 5 requests to contract with current and/or former employees pursuant to NRS 333.705, subsection 1. The first request is from the Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy to contract with a former employee to provide administrator duties until a new administrator is hired. Once a new administrator is hired, the employee will provide consultation services on a part-time basis. The employee will retire in October 2018. This request is related to contract agenda item 15. The second, third, and fourth requests are from the Department of Transportation to allow contracted vendors to use former employees on projects awarded to the vendor. The second request is for an engineer to perform constructability review of the bidding documents for the Centennial Bowl project. The employee will retire in October of 2018. The third request is for an office manager in the full administration of District 2 betterment projects. the employee retired in August 2018. The fourth request is for a team member on the Nevada Strategic Highway Safety Plan's Impaired Driving Task Force. The employee retired from the Nevada Highway Patrol in July of 2017. The former employees did not have any influence or authority over the contracts with the vendors. The fourth request is from the Governor's Finance Office to contract with a former state employee who retired in July of 2018 to assist with the preparation of the Governor's executive budget and special projects. The contractor will work approximately 20 hours per week from October through early January and on an as-needed basis through June 2019. Representatives from the departments are available to answer any questions the board members may have.
Thank you, Mr. Nix. These are all very straightforward and actually pretty important, all of them, with regard to the ongoing operation of state government. Board members, any questions with regard to agenda item number 6?
Move to approve agenda item number 6.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. The Attorney General has moved to approve the authorizations to contract with the current and/or former state employees presented in agenda item number 6A, B, and C. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Governor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The Secretary has seconded the motion. Any questions or discussion? There are none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes 3-0. Agenda item number 7, request for recommendation of approval to the IFC for an allocation amount from the contingency account. Mr. Nix.
Item 7 has 2 requests for a positive recommendation to the Interim Finance Committee pursuant to NRS 353.268 for 1 allocation from the General Fund Contingency Account and 1 from the Highway Fund Contingency Account. The General Fund Contingency Account has an approximate balance of $12.4 million, and the Highway Fund Contingency has an approximate balance of $1.7 million to cover unanticipated costs for the remainder of the 2017-19 biennium. If these items are approved, the remaining balances of the account are $9.4 million and $1.6 million respectively. The first request is for the General Fund Contingency Account. The request is from the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, Division of Forestry, in the amount of $3 million to fund emergency response activities. This initial request will allow the division to operate through December 2018, at which time an additional request will be made to enable them to operate until a supplemental appropriation can be requested. The agency has revised their estimated need and will address the new request. The second request is for the Highway Contingency Account. The request is from the Department of Public Safety, Office of Traffic Safety, in the amount of $72,639 to fund a Program Officer 2 who will be hired to support the initial implementation of reporting requirements for the interlocking devices set forth in Senate Bill 259 of the 2017 legislative session. The agency has revised their estimated need and will address the new request.
Nevada history, with my understanding, so please proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Governor, members of the committee. Thanks for having me here today. First, I would like to just start with thanking your Finance Office staff and the Legislative Council Bureau staff for helping us the last 2 years to find creative solutions to this issue. We have been before you. It's almost like Groundhog's Day. We're here again numerous times in the past year requesting funds to cover the fire season. Last year was the worst, third worst in record. And we did pay back all of the money we had asked for last year, just to put that on the record. I don't know that we'll have the funds that we bring in this year to do that, but hopefully we will. Just as we had talked, last year was the 3rd highest on record. The Forest Service just set out a new paper on shared stewardship and how we're going to get through these challenges, both from a natural resource management standpoint and a cost of firefighting standpoint. But what's interesting is 2017 from nationwide was one of our most devastating on record, not only from firefighters and public that were killed during these fire sieges, but also acres lost. We were at 10 million acres nationwide last year in 2017, 1.3 million of which were in the state of Nevada. I think that that's pretty notable. This year we are so far in our fire season at 607 fires, a little over 1.1 million acres. Just as we had talked in your governor's fire brief, the graph we showed, I know as firefighters, we're constantly telling you that every year is going to be the worst year. But actually science shows that it's always the years following, and we're just following that exactly as we had anticipated. This year, notably, a little bit different in the types of fires we're seeing. We are at 324 of the 607, which is 53% human caused. At this point last year, we had surpassed that number in lightning caused. And the acreage is about 57% on human caused fires. The Martin fire was the largest fire in recorded history in the state of Nevada. We had two fires relatively close to each other, the Martin and the South Sugarloaf, where we had runs of almost 90,000 acres in one day, which is fire behavior like we've never seen before. Unfortunately, I think that may be our new norm with what's happening in our ecosystems and just the fuel loads that we have out there. We were less than 900 nationwide. So it just goes to show that we're moving further and further into these wildland-urban interfaces. We are going to it's going to take a lot more for us to suppress these fires because there's a lot more values at risk. As you saw for us this year, unfortunately, a lot of the fires burned in critical sage-grouse habitat. I believe we were a little over 1 million acres. Last year, we were just shy of 1 million acres of sage-grouse habitat burned. Some of that will have natural recovery. It's in a highly resilient landscape where it will come back on its own. Most of it will have issues and will need to be helped in our rehab efforts as we move forward, as the threat of cheatgrass will be very prominent. Hopefully that has answered all your questions, or I'm happy to answer.
No, you anticipated a lot of questions. So first and foremost, thank you to you and the men and women who work with you in fighting those fires, because they said that some of the most extreme conditions that you could ever imagine, and you're all out there trying to protect life and homes and keep things safe and protect the landscape, as you mentioned. So just a couple questions. You mentioned the ecosystem, and the ecosystem has lent itself to some more of these larger, intense fires. Is that because of the onset of invasive species, invasive weeds?
It's partially due to that, yes. There's much more cheatgrass in the northern portion of the state. Brome grass is south than we've ever seen before. It's also due to 150 years of fire exclusion in these ecosystems that have allowed them to become much more dense than they ever were historically. If you look at the stumps of the Comstock up in our state parks up in Tahoe, you would see that our trees were much more sparsely populated. They weren't as dense as they are today. So there's a lot of factors that are contributing to that, as well as the amount of homes in those inner spaces.
And when you say fire exclusion, I've not heard you use that term before. Does that mean that the fires that you set to prevent fires later are prohibited?
That and fire exclusion, it went to full suppression. So historically, there was a lot of fire used, started as prescribed fires, and then also natural starts that were allowed to burn into some areas as they were intended to burn. The historical fire regimes were much larger because they were a lot lower intensity, cleaning up the forest floors. As you know now, we're not able to do that without a lot of work ahead of time, because we have to get those stocking levels down in order to be able to safely prescribe fire or use a natural start to do what we intend to do on the landscape.
Okay. And then last for me, obviously the sage grouse is a big concern. So now that we've lost close to 1 million acres of habitat, what is the plan to revegetate?
We look at every fire individually as a group. There's usually a BEAR team called in, a burned area rehab effort that comes multi-agency, local government, state, federal, looking at what areas will come back on their own, so we don't put a lot of effort, as we all have small pockets of money and resources to put toward this. But we're looking at the areas where we'll have the biggest receptive in those areas, and we're looking at the duration in which, and the long-term plans, So every fire comes out, the large ones obviously have bear teams, the smaller ones are just governments working together to try to get those things done. And that is a big focus of ours this year and has been every year, because that's kind of how you win the war eventually of getting these invasives not coming in and getting some of our at least native or adapted species that are better at like the progression into these areas before the cheatgrass comes in.
And then just back to the business of this agenda item, what was, perhaps Mr. Nick said it and I just missed it, what was the exact amount that you are seeking?
I'll add that. We are seeking $3.8 million today, and that is the money needed to process outstanding vendor and local jurisdiction payments. That's not including payments that we have to our federal cooperators and partners. We're pushing those a little bit further. These are bills we know of that need to be paid as of today. As you know, some of these smaller vendors don't have the money to float this, neither do our local jurisdictions. So those are our priority, as they have been in the past, and then we're pushing the other payments forward. So there will be more asks as we go forward, but what we're trying to ask for now is what we know we have as far as payments as of today.
And is any of that reimbursable down the line from the federal government?
Yes, some portion of it could be. We have not been successful in getting the FMAG grants this year. We have appealed one. We'll see if that happens, but through cost share, some of that may be reimbursable depending. The lion's share of the acres burned are still federal acres. So when we go and adjudicate, unfortunately, many of the starts were on state and private lands, so that puts us as the ones paying the bills up front. Some of that may be reimbursable. On some, we may owe more money. It's just that gets all adjudicated in the cost share at the end.
And then finally, this money is for exclusively Nevada fires. It's not for any of our resources when we helped in other states.
It's for Nevada fires. Our resources that we sent to California were our resources, and so those already override. Our Category 1 authority can override. So we've already paid our employees, and that's the bulk of the expense that goes when we send our people to California. So this is for vendors on fires in the state of Nevada.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Board members, any further questions with regard to agenda item 7A?
No, Governor, thank you.
Madam Secretary, any questions for you?
No, Governor, thank you. I just want to thank the Forestry Division for all their hard work and echo your comments to them and thank them for everything that they've been doing.
And I don't want to jinx anything, Ms. Casey, but pardon the pun, are we out of the woods now, do you
No.
think? No?
I would like to think we are. We're gonna release fire restrictions statewide here pretty soon. Unfortunately, the amount of moisture that we've got in the last week or so has not returned our fuel moistures to the level you'd want to, so we are still susceptible, although fires would probably be hopefully smaller depending on conditions because we're getting nighttime recovery of relative humidity. So we're not quite out of the woods. We've seen in the last year or 2 years fires in November, December, January, and February. So it really all depends upon what moisture is to come, because what we've had has not let us get out of the woods quite yet.
So you continue your PSAs just to keep the public informed that...
We're always speaking the same language, and we're all...
I'm sorry, I do have one question on 7A. I believe, Ms. Casey, you had indicated that 3.8 million is what you needed, but in here, in our notes, it says 3. So do we need to
as
clarify
part of the motion, no, and that's a good catch, Madam Secretary. If when or if you make a motion or the Attorney General makes a motion, if you could make an amended one for the 3.8, which is what the agency needs and seeks.
Okay, well, so moved to the A, that we would move it to 3.8 million instead of the 3 million that's in there for A, and that's the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources Division of Forestry.
And do you want to include B in your motion as well, Madam Secretary?
Oh, if that's all right, I thought you wanted to take them separate, so
No,
that's right.
unless you have any. Oh, there's a revision on B. So,
Yeah.
Mr. Nix, just for the purpose of the record, just inform me that there is a revision to B as well. So, yes, okay. Madam Secretary, if you'd please proceed with a motion on agenda item 7A.
Just what I said. Do you want me to repeat it?
No. Okay.
Okay.
So the Secretary of State has moved to approve the request for a recommendation of approval to the IFC for an allocation amount from the contingency account for the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources Division of Forestry in the sum of $3.8 million. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. The Attorney General has seconded the motion. Any questions or discussion? There's none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 3-0. We'll move to agenda item 7B. Mr. Nix.
The second request is for the Highway Contingency Fund account. The request is from the Department of Public Safety, Office of Traffic Safety, in the amount of $72,639 to fund a program officer 2 who will be hired to support the initial implementation of reporting requirements for interlocking devices set forth in Senate Bill 259 of the 2017 legislative session. The agency has revised their estimated need and will address the new request.
And good morning.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Administrator Amy Davey with the Nevada Office of Traffic Safety in the Department of Public Safety. We're bringing to you a request for contingency funds this morning to fund a position to meet the agency's new statutory requirements, lock use. We do have a revised request this morning based on an amended hire date. We request $53,387. I did prepare some information for you, but I'll leave it at your discretion if you would like more information about this request.
When additional information, is it anything you think is important to make as part of the record?
I would like to, if you don't mind. It's single page, double space, so I can run through it very quickly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senate Bill 259 from the 2017 legislative session specified that reports of ignition interlock device violation would be provided by the DPS to courts to assist with determination of the period for which a driver who is convicted of DUI must use the ignition interlock device. Currently, courts send DUI conviction information to the DMV to provide them with the terms for which an ignition interlock device is required. The DPS does not receive arrest, conviction, or driver's license information, and we must establish a new process by which to collect violation reports and distribute them to the courts. Additionally, new requirements were assigned to the Committee on Testing for Intoxication to adopt regulations related to installation, removal, inspection, calibration, maintenance, and operation of devices. The implementation date of the new ignition interlock requirements occurred on October 1, 2018, and the Office of Traffic Safety has been working with courts, DMV, ignition interlock providers, and law enforcement for several months to provide education and training on ignition interlocks, as well as researching other states' program models and recommendations for program administration. We also received technical assistance from the Traffic Injury Research Foundation. The DPS originally estimated staffing requirements during the legislative session of up to 7 positions, but now with several months of research under our belts, we feel that a program officer position will allow us to meet our statutory requirements while continuing work is done on this legislation to determine which state agency will have overall program authority. That concludes my information.
No, now I've got questions.
I should have let it go.
So just to be clear, you only need one position to run this program?
We've looked very closely at what the DPS requirement are for administrative oversight of violation reporting. We're working with the Department of Motor Vehicles and with courts right now to talk about one of the assessment recommendations that came out of the Traffic Injury Research Foundation evaluation of this statute is that the state establish clear program authority for this program. That's not currently contained in statute. The DPS does have some reporting requirements, However, overall program authority is not clear for many elements of the program, which is why we're in conversations with the courts and with the Department of Motor Vehicles, because they really are the conduits for information to pass back and forth. As you know, ignition interlock is typically administered through the driver's licensing process or through the court sentencing process. So having the DPS involved in violation reporting is a little bit out of our scope right now. And so we're focusing only on what the DPS is required to do, which is violation reporting.
And have you received any violations in the past 8 days?
Violations won't come in until like the end of the month.
Here, why don't you come forward just so we have you on the record?
This is our impaired driving program manager, Victoria Howen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Violation reports. Is it not on?
You're okay.
Okay. The driver or the person who has the ignition interlock would take their car into the service center at the end of the month where all of the data is uploaded to the manufacturer's server. So that information actually won't come in until the end of the month.
But and I know I signed this bill, but just if you would refresh my memory. So if somebody gets a DUI as of October 1 of this year, the law applies to them, but does it apply to those that were convicted prior to October 1?
That question has come up multiple times from some of the judges that I'm in communication with, and it's subject to interpretation as far as like, I think DMV's NRS says that any time that their license is suspended for driving under the influence, that they may be able to install. Part of the SB 259 allowed someone to voluntarily install the device as a condition to get their license reinstated. So I anticipate there could be a demand and a request to do that to benefit the driver, so that instead of driving on a suspended license, they can drive legally.
And we're all ready to go as those start to come in?
We're developing our process as we go. As I said, this is a new process for us, and it's a manual process right now. Honestly, we have not wanted to look at automating this process until we have a good understanding of how information will flow, and as we work with our partners, we really want to understand what the courts need, what the DMV needs, where that information is. So, it's a manual process to begin with, but we're working our way through it. We're in close contact with vendors, with courts, and with the DMV.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it goes without saying, this was a really good bill. And,
yes.
And so I'm hopeful that we'll be ready as those come in and that they can get installed, because I think it's going to make it safer for people on the roads. Yes.
I just wanted to add that manufacturers also have an online web portal, so anyone that really needs that information will have access to it, such as a court, probation, DMV. So we're working to get those approval processes in place as well, so that no process is going to stop people that need the information from getting the information.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any other questions with regard to agenda item 7B?
We have none, Governor. Thank you.
Thank you for the information. That was very helpful. All right, if there are no further questions, the chair will accept a motion to approve the request for a recommendation of approval to the IFC for an allocation amount from the contingency account to the Department of Public Safety, Office of Traffic Safety, in the amount of $53,387.
So moved.
Secretary of State has moved for approval. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by the Attorney General. Any questions or discussion on the motion? I hear none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 3-0. Agenda item number 8, request to pay a cash settlement, Nevada Department of Transportation.
Item 8 includes a request for approval of a cash settlement from the Department of Transportation relating to the Interstate 15 interchange at Cactus Avenue in Las Vegas. The request in the amount of $75,000 will fully resolve an inverse condemnation action currently on appeal at the Nevada Supreme Court. Representatives from the Department of Transportation are available to answer any questions the board may have.
Good morning, Director Malfabon.
Good morning, Governor. For the record, Rudy Malfabon, Director of Nevada Department of Transportation. In this particular case, we acquired a property at Cactus Interchange that included some improvements, the billboard. We felt that we fully compensated the landowner, but they filed an inverse condemnation case requesting $1 million. That went to district court. We won on a summary motion to dismiss that case, which the landowner wants to appeal to district court for reconsideration and having any other issues overturning the previous decision of the court. So we felt that it was a good settlement in the public's interest, and Dennis Gallagher, our Chief Deputy Attorney General, is able to answer any legal questions about it.
Thank you, Director Malfabon, and good morning, Ms. Gallagher. And I'm familiar with this, having sat yesterday on the Board of Transportation, but in any event, I would just assume that this is out of prudence because, as Director Malfabon said, there's the risk of a reversal and remand back to the district.
Any risk, it'll eliminate any risk for any additional cost, litigation expenses, time, attorney's fees potential. So we believe it's in the best interest of the department, therefore the best interest of the state, for your approval of this settlement amount.
Okay, and thank you, Mr. Gallagher, and that's a dismissal with prejudice?
Correct, Governor.
All right, thank you. Board members, any questions with regard to agenda item number 8?
Move to approve agenda item number 8.
Attorney General has moved to approve the request to pay a cash settlement by the Nevada Department of Transportation in the sum of $75,000 as presented in agenda item number 8. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Governor.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The Secretary of State has seconded the motion. Any questions or discussion? There are none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 3-0. Thank you and good result. Very well done. Agenda item number 9, approval of proposed leases. Mr. Nix.
There are 8 leases on agenda item number 9 for approval by the board this morning. No additional information was requested by any of the members.
Thank you, Mr. Nix. I have no questions. Board members, any questions with regard to agenda item number 9?
Move to approve agenda item number 9.
Attorney General has moved to approve the leases presented in agenda item number 9. Is there a second?
I'll second it. Thank you, Governor.
Secretary of State has seconded the motion. Any questions or discussion? I hear none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. We'll move to agenda item number 10, approval of proposed contracts. Mr. Nix.
There are 32 contracts on agenda item number 10 for approval by the board this morning. Members have requested additional information on contract number 7 between the Department of Administration, State Public Works, and the Core Construction Services of Nevada, Incorporated.
Thank you, Mr. Nix. And I had asked agenda item number 7 to be held out only because it's great news with regard to the construction of a new engineering building at the University of Nevada. So I just wanted to get some background on what's going on and what are the schedules going to be and when we think we're going to be finished.
Thank you, Governor Ward Patrick. For the record, Administrator for the State Public Works Division. This is our project 17C06 UNR Engineering Building. This is a project where this contract is to extend some work on the project, and we're looking to have the project completed in the summer of 2020. We started work on this project on approximately July 16th, and there's been some serious earthwork being completed, and that's going in ahead of schedule. Thank you.
And what is the total all-in cost for the building?
The total amount of the contract right now is $80 million for our guaranteed maximum price. The overall project budget is approximately $85 million.
All right, it's an exciting construction project. Thank you. Any questions from board members? Thank you, gentlemen. There are no further questions on the contracts presented in agenda item number 10. The chair will accept a motion.
Move to approve.
Attorney General has moved to approve the proposed contracts presented in agenda item number 10. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by the Secretary of State. Any questions or discussion on the motion? I hear none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes 3-0. We'll move on to agenda item 11, approval of proposed master service agreements. Mr. Nix.
There are 19 master service agreements in agenda item 11 for approval by the board this morning. 16 of these agreements replace existing provider agreements as explained at the June BOE meeting. No additional information has been requested by any of the members.
Thank you, Mr. Nix. Any questions, board members?
No, Governor. Thank you.
And is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve agenda item number 11.
Attorney General has moved to approve the proposed master service agreements presented in agenda item number 11. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Governor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The Secretary of State has seconded the motion. Any questions or discussion? I hear none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes 3-0. We'll move on to agenda item number 12, which is an information item, the clerk of the board contracts. Mr. Nix.
There were 31 contracts under the $50,000 threshold approved by the clerk between August 21st, 2018 and September 17th, 2018. This item is informational only. Members have requested additional information on information contract number 24 between the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, State Parks, and Far Western Anthropological Research Group, Incorporated.
Contract 24. Good morning, Mr. Johnson.
Always do this. There we go. Eric Johnson, Administrator for Nevada Division of State Parks. In a brief summary, this contract provides cultural survey services for Ice Age Fossil State Park. We've done some preliminary surveys to look at where our trail system's going to go, this building site location. This is a more formal process required by the fact that it's a federal undertaking. As you know, we try and take one general fund dollar and turn it into two on the ground using land and water funds. So that makes it a federal undertaking and subject to these requirements. So this simply satisfies that. And it's been, quite frankly, some time since a real formal survey was done, going back to the 60s.
So what does a survey include? What do they do? It's
a site survey where archaeologists or those trained with archaeologists walk through the site physically and cover as much ground as they can to see if over time anything else has been exposed through erosion, wind, et cetera, and just to get a real accurate picture of what's out there.
I mean, it's all over the place, as you know, and I'm sure you can expand on that. The fossils are.
Yes, Governor. As you're aware, you've been to the site. This 315-acre site is paleontologically rich. It's littered isn't the right word, but there are fossils everywhere on this location. But what we want to do is we want to strategically place our trails and our building site locations so that we're not inappropriately or adversely affecting the locations of some of these artifacts, and then so we can move some and display them if they are where we need to create a trail.
And you can probably name them off better than I, but if you would go through the roster of the fossils that are there, it's pretty impressive.
Yes, Governor. There's a lot of invertebrate fossils, shells, but the ones that are interesting, at least to me personally, are the fact that the camelops, which is a gigantic cameloid found on the site. Saber-toothed tigers have been found in the area, the American lion, the giant sloth. We have yet to find evidence of man's coexistence with these animals, but we may be on the cusp of finding that. I don't want to divulge something that could be in a scientific journal pretty soon, but we got some pretty exciting news coming up.
You just did. But no, I didn't even know that. So
that's very new information, Governor.
No, and that's exciting. I mean, this is a bit of an infomercial, but it is a wonderful new state park that is under development and is literally across the street from Shadow Ridge High School. So it's accessible, it's with, to the urban area. There's going to be a partnership with UNLV, or there already is a partnership. The high school's going to be involved as well, but literally, a state park that is rich with those types of fossils in the backyard.
Absolutely, Governor. It's unique to Nevada, and it's unique to the world, quite frankly. There aren't a lot of these resources that aren't privately owned and that are as accessible as this place will be. A quick update if you'd like. We're going to go out to bid on the utilities here for the Visitors Center this month, and followed shortly thereafter by bid for the building construction, which will be, I think, very impressive looking when it's done.
And then while I have you, Mr. Johnson, any update on East Walker, the new state park there in Lyon County?
Yes, Governor. We had a ribbon cutting event, which you attended. It was, I thought, a fantastic day, followed by the first public opening day, which is the Saturday following. I was actually just directing traffic that day, but there was 700 or 800 people showed up. The public reaction was tremendous. People were just excited to have a new opportunity, particularly a water-based opportunity in their backyard. So it was just a very positive day. The public liked what they saw. They're looking forward to the continuation of the second campground loop, which is actually out to bid right now. The bid's been let, as a matter of fact. The contract, I mean to say.
And another bit of an infomercial, but 13,000 acres of, 3 former ranches, private ranches that were in private hands since the 1860s that now make available almost 30 miles of river that will, for anglers, for kayakers, for what have you. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful place where you can, if you want to be alone, you can be alone. And if you want to hike, or it's a free range zoo with the antelope and turkeys and deer. It's just really an experience for those that love the outdoors. So thank you for your hard work with regard to that. And finally, Mr. Johnson, I did have a little bit of method in asking you to come forward, as you may or may not be aware that Mr. Johnson is retiring from state service. And in a public forum, I wanted to personally thank you on behalf of the people of the great state of Nevada for your commitment and dedication and passion to our state park system and making it what an amazing, amazing, whatever you choose to do.
And thank you, Governor. It's been a pleasure and an honor, and I'll thank you for your support. You've made the last few years years of growth for Nevada State Parks, and I appreciate it.
And I have something for you, Mr. Johnson.
I'm not sure if I should be nervous or not. Hey, Pam.
Well, this is a proclamation that proclaims October 16th, 2018, a day in honor of Eric Johnson. And sorry, Madam Secretary, we're waiting for somebody from your office to sign this.
He's right there in
Scott,
the
why don't
office,
you sign
yes.
this so we can make it official?
Thank you very much, Governor.
And congratulations, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. I don't think I'd trade my career for anything.
So, Mr. Johnson, if I could present you with this proclamation, and again, congratulations on a job well done. I've just been advised that we do need to get an official copy of this, but I think this is a first to have a live signing at a Board of Examiners meeting. But again, my sincere thanks, and really appreciate your service.
Thank you, Governor. Appreciate it.
All right. Any other questions with regard to agenda item number 12? Sorry, I'm trying to read through my notes. So we'll move on to agenda item number 13, another information item for reports. Mr. Nix.
This item is a notification from the Division of Emergency Management of intent to request allocations from the disaster relief account pursuant to NRS 353.2755. Pursuant to statute, state agencies and local governments can request a grant or loan through the Division of Emergency Management from the disaster relief account. If, because of the disaster, the local government is unable to pay for an expense from available funds. Applicants must submit their intention to apply not later than 60 days after the governor or the governing body of a local government determines an event constitutes a disaster. The division must then notify the Board of Examiners and the Fiscal Analysis Division of the Legislative Council Bureau of the intent. Within 18 months of the determination of an event constitutes a disaster, the state agency or local governments must submit their final request to the Division of Emergency Management and the Department of Taxation, including whether the request is for a loan or a grant and the final amount of the request. The Division of Emergency Management and the Department of Taxation are required to review the request and submit reports to the Board of Examiners, who will make a recommendation to the Interim Finance Committee on the proposed amount and the determination of a grant or loan. This notification is just the first step in the process. The application will come to the board for approval of a recommendation to the Interim Finance Committee at a later date. This notification is for the thunderstorm and subsequent flash flooding in Mineral County on July 21st and 22nd of 2018.
Thank you, Mr. Nix. Any questions, board members?
No, Governor, thank you.
All right. And we'll move on to agenda item number 14, which is public comment. I'll begin in Southern Nevada. Is there any public comment from Southern Nevada?
None here, Governor.
Any public comment from Northern Nevada? The only thing I'll say is here, you guys are in Las Vegas, but if you look up, we've recently had installed in this room the flags of each and every county. And the point there is a reminder for all of us as public servants that who we serve. And we're really proud of this, and the flags are in chronological order, and then those counties that were approved at the same time in alphabetical order so that no one can claim one county was favored over the other. But it's just really important. For me, it's a reminder that the people of our state are constantly with us and counting on us to do our jobs and do it well on their behalf. But I really want to thank everybody who was associated with installing the flags. I think they look fabulous, and just, I finished signing thank you letters to the chairpersons of every county in the state who submitted a new flag so that we could have a really nice quality exhibit here. But I think that it finishes this room off in just an amazing, amazing way. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Attorney General has made a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Governor.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, who seconded the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
The flags look nice, Governor.
Thank you. Yeah,